going on, guys? We are back with a survival hunter video. Patch 7.3, we're going to be covering rotation, talents, some PvP talent stuff, just kind of different abilities. I wanted to do kind of a rotation specific video, but I think maybe just like a general overview of everything would be better. So let's start with what rotation would be, though. And depending on how you play it, because I play PvP specifically, I don't PvE on this guy at all. So what I'm saying won't apply necessarily to raiding or any kind of PvE content. The rotation for me is probably going to be different than yours. That still might be a good video to watch just for general information, especially if you're somebody who PvPs occasionally or whatever. But anyway, so your opening would be, well, first you need to choose whether you're using Harpoon to open or not. I typically don't open with it in arenas because you're probably going to need it as a gap closer later or to lock somebody down later. So I will typically not use that as an opener in arenas. In Battlegrounds, I do use it more often simply because it refreshes when somebody dies and you can just use it again. In arenas, not as many people die in arenas, obviously, so you don't have it up as often. The downtime is there and it kills you. So definitely want to be careful with that. You can always disengage to get to somebody, or if you're a goblin, you can use your little jump or whatever it is that you need to do to avoid using that as an opener in arenas, and then use it for BGs, kind of just on whenever you can anyway. So as far as rotation for damaging abilities, your two biggest ones are going to be Flanking Strike. Let me rephrase that. Your three biggest ones are going to be Flanking Strike, Explosive Trap, and Mongoose Bite. Mongoose Bite is usually going to be your #1 damaging ability. It hits like a truck. When you start building your stacks up, it starts to hit really, really hard. So the damage from that will add up pretty quickly and overtake your Flanking Strike and your dots and so forth. But typically when I open, I want to get my dots on them. So I want, if I'm going to, let's say, jump on this guy, I'll typically, well, it won't let me jump on the dummy, apparently. But there you go. There's another benefit of opening with the Harpoon is you get that extra dot. But anyway, so typically I can run up to somebody, put my Lacerate and my Serpent Sting on them, and then I can pop my cooldowns and go to town. But depending on the situation, if somebody's low, then I may want to try to burst them down and not worry so much about the dots, but rather go into, use my Aspect of the Eagle, Flanking Strike, and then just go to town with Mongoose Bites just to finish them off. But if it's a full health player, I'll typically Harpoon in and then drop my Explosive Trap first. Explosive Trap does a ton of damage. So you want to do that. Now again, these are training dummies, so the damage on players is going to be less, but I typically will run in, drop that Flanking Strike, and then I'm going to put up my 2 dots, which are going to be Lacerate, and then I currently, instead of using Dragonfire Grenade, am using Serpent Sting. So I will either carve if there's a group to Serpent Sting the group, or I will Raptor Strike to put my Serpent Sting up. At that point, I pop my burst cooldown here, which will use my Aspect of the Eagle and my Murder of Crows, and if I have one, a Saltwater Potion. And saltwater potions are not for arenas, but for BGs anyway. And then I will start going to town with my Mongoose Bites. And Flanking Strike on cooldown, that's going to come back up. So even when I'm Mongoose Biting, I'm going to try to Flanking Strike again, just because it has double the normal chance to trigger Hunting Companion. So where I get another stack of Mongoose Bite that I can do. So again, that's going to be Explosive Trap, Flanking Strike, put my dots up, pop my cooldowns, and then start going to town with Mongoose Bite and Flanking Strike, and then just reapply my dots where I need them. I have my throwing axes here. You can try to fit that into your rotation. There's times where you're wanting to hit somebody or keep pressure up, but you don't have enough for a flanking strike, focus-wise, you can always use these guys. You got 2 charges of them. They only cost 15 each, so pretty cheap. And the damage that they do is actually pretty good, as you can see. So, but usually I tend to use those as a finisher. And a lot of the time it goes the same with Murder of Crows. I'll use it to open if I want to put on more pressure, or I'll use it as a closer. In BGs, it just works really well because your targets die so fast, especially if you're running with a good team, that you can continuously just, as soon as that person dies, you can pop Murder of Crows on the next one, and you guys can just continue to mow them down. And then just, you know, target to target, harpoon, and Murder of Crows, and just target to target, just hop back and forth between people, killing them as you go. Arenas, it's a little bit different. So that kind of covers rotation. There's spots that are going to vary where you're going to need to lay traps, you're going to need to interrupt, you're going to need to do other things, stuff like that. I have my Blood Fury macroed into my Lacerate just because Lacerate I use so often. You always want to keep it up because it does a ton of damage. I use so often, and I always forget to use my Blood Fury, so I just have it, you know, in there. And then one thing I will say, so Dragonfire Grenade is better for... Dragonfire Grenade right here is better for bursting down a single target quickly. The thing I don't like about it is the cooldown. You know, Serpent Sting has no cooldown. I can Raptor Strike or carve however or whenever I want to. Doesn't really matter. And then the ticks from the two are about the same. The main difference being that the Dragonfire Grenade ticks about twice as fast as Serpent Sting. So that's why if you're looking to burst somebody down, if they're at half health and you want to just drop them, then Dragonfire Grenade is going to be better if you're that type of player. If you're just a burst them down super quick type of player. Serpent Sting, more consistent, stable, steady damage, and I like it because I can carve, which already does a lot of damage. It already hits pretty hard, as you can see here. Hits targets in front of me for 307,000 damage. Plus, it puts Serpent Sting on everybody that it hits. So if there's a group of 3 or 4 of them, I can start doing that, and then put my dot up on all of them, drop an explosive trap, and now I'm really putting a lot of AoE pressure on them by doing that. And you can even tab target Lacerate if you wanted to add additional dots to everybody. Now we'll kind of go into talents here. Talents vary, depends on the situation, especially in arenas. In arenas, you're going to be swapping your talents out left and right. For BGs, BGs you don't change that much. I mean, depending on when you look at your Mr. Target or your Battleground targets or whatever you're using, and you figure out the composition of the team that you're facing. You know, if it's melee heavy, then you can switch. Oh, I pulled up the wrong window. Then you can switch to some other talents, honor talents. That is, you can go just cat-like and go sparring, or if it's more. If you have 5 warlocks like I had the other day in a group, then I might want to go with either dragon scale or survival tactics other than cat-like reflexes, right? So that's always going to change. That's always going to be constantly changing. We're going to be wanting to watch what the other team is made of so we can adapt to that. As far as just the main talents here, I like the throwing axes. I've messed with Animal Instincts. I didn't like it. I didn't like it that much at all. I mean, I would use Flanking Strike, and then it reduces the cooldown of Flanking Strike randomly by 2.5 seconds. So by the time I use that, and then use, let's say, a Raptor Strike to reapply my dot, then my Flanking Strike is back up, but I don't have enough focus to actually cast it at that point. So then I'm having to wait. Then I have downtime, and I don't like downtime. So I don't ever use that. Throwing axes are great for additional pressure, running into somebody. You know, you want to harpoon them, but then again, you don't necessarily need to. You can just kind of run in there, throw your axes. That way you can start your pressure before you get to them, and then continue to DPS once you reach them. And they're great as a finisher when somebody's running away, when a Demon Hunter jumps up in the air and does this goofy little thing up in the air. Then you can start throwing those at them, and that along with your dots will typically kill them. Way of Mok'Nathal is good, but it is work to keep it up. I think It's probably better for PvE, is what I would say. It is a lot of attack power if you can keep it up, but and really when you're using Raptor and you're using Serpent Sting with Raptor Strike, you're going to be Raptor Striking often enough every 10 seconds or so to keep Serpent Sting up anyway. But sometimes you don't though. Sometimes you carve and you don't use Raptor Strike at all because you're in a group, and then at that point, this starts to fall off. I just don't like it. I don't like the upkeep of it. I think it's more for PvE. This one, Mortal Wounds, I never use. It's too low of a chance. It's not enough of a benefit for me to take that. 2% chance to get another Mongoose Bite. I get Mongoose Bites all the time as it is. So I don't really need an extra 2% chance at an extra one that I already probably have at that point, Murder of Crows is awesome. It does a lot of damage. I mean, I can kind of show you how much damage it does here. Just pop it on the training dummy. It's about 85 per tick. Obviously, it's reduced in PvP, as everything is, but it's pretty good. I mean, that's ticking every second for 15 seconds, so it's a lot of damage. Snake Hunter is good too, though. Snake Hunter, definitely good for burst. If you want to, pop your 3 Mongoose Bites, and then pop maybe like your Aspect of the Eagle, and then use Snake Hunter and do another 3 right after that, that would hit really, really hard. So you would be able to burst somebody down pretty quick. Now you can only do it once every 2 minutes, but still, it's a lot. My pick is always going to be one of these two. BGs, I'm typically going to take Murder of Crows. Arenas, it can vary. Sometimes I might want to take Snake Hunter, sometimes Murder of Crows. The next one, Post Haste. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It would be okay for BGs in the sense that you're using your harpoon a lot because targets are dropping and you're just harpooning on to the next one. But it says that it frees you from all movement impairing effects and increases your speed by 60% for 5 seconds, but it doesn't. I've been like rooted or whatever. I can't remember exactly what ability it was, but I was rooted, and that it wouldn't get me out. It might get me out of maybe like a slow, if a paladin put his little slow on me or something like that, but it doesn't get you out of everything. So I don't know. I don't like it. I use Disengage. I think Disengage is better because not only you can use it as a getaway, but typically survival you're not going to want to. You want to be in the middle of it. Although sometimes you do need to get away and kite. Those pesky death knights and so forth. But you can also leap towards your target as well if you can aim yourself right. So, which takes a little bit of skill to get used to. And even I'm not perfect at it. I miss quite a bit. So, Trailblazer's actually alright for BGs. I don't mind it in BGs. I think it's pretty good. Anytime I haven't attacked anybody, I just move 30% faster. So, especially if you're going like a stealth spec in that BG, it helps you move faster in stealth. So, it's good. But typically, I'll take Disengage. This one, I've never messed with Steel Trap. Don't really know anything about it. I know I've read the description. It's just I don't think it's that good. Not for PvP anyway. Caltraps is okay, and the one thing that's good about Caltraps is the cooldown's only 12 seconds versus the 24 for Tar Traps. You have it up twice as often, but all they have to do is just walk right out of that. And the thing that sucks about PvP is, if you're looking on, I'm trying to point my guy here. If you're looking at the description, it says it reduces their movement speed by 70%. It doesn't do that in PvP. It reduces it by 49%, which is actually less than the Tar Trap. And Tar Trap will root them on top of slowing them down. So even though Caltraps is a little bit of extra bleed damage, I will typically take Tar Trap. It's just better. So that's why I use Guerrilla Tactics. Guerrilla Tactics will not only make my Explosive Trap deal 50% more damage, but it will cause the target, so if it's a melee heavy BG or something like that, this is great because it's going to cause them to miss their next 2 attacks, melee attacks. So just an additional benefit there. These guys here, I love Ranger's Net. Ranger's Net is amazing. It's just great. I mean, it's a ranged way of rooting somebody, so any hunter knows that it's a pain in the ass to trap people sometimes, especially like these monks and other classes that are just mages that are just blinking and zipping around, and it's just a pain. And having the Ranger's Net is good because it has no cooldown. Well, it has a 1-second cooldown, but I can just throw that on them and then toss my trap, and I know I'm gonna get them basically, unless it's a mage who can blink away, something like that. But or a paladin with freedom is always fun trying to trap too. But no, in most cases it works good for that. It's also good for chasing down flag carriers because there's no cooldown. I can just keep doing it. Eventually it DRs, but I can hit them 3 or 4 times with it and root them until it gives me and my teammates enough time to catch up to them and blow them up. So Ranger's Net's great. I typically will always use this. I don't use camouflage that much. I was messing around with it last night. In fact, I'm going to switch it back to Ranger's Net here. I just like it better. Sticky Bomb. I have mixed feelings on Sticky Bomb. I don't ever really use it, but I feel like in certain BGs, Eye of the Storm, or a Wrathy when you're up on the lumber mill, up at lumber mill, or anything like that, it might be kind of handy. But that's very it's just a very situational ability, I think. And I think Ranger's Net is just a more generally beneficial ability. It's just you get more out of it than you would with Sticky Bomb or Camouflage. So typically I'm going to have one of these two, but most of the time it's going to be Ranger's Net. For this tier, Butchery I kind of messed around with a little bit, and it's alright. Yeah, it does a little bit more damage. It replaces Carvin. It does a little bit more damage, but overall, these two are going to be your best options. Again, Dragonfire Grenade is just great for bursting people down. It has good AoE capability as well. If you throw that into a group of 4 or 5 players, it's gonna burn them all. So it does a lot. Serpent Sting is just straight up good, consistent, steady damage that you can apply at any time on multiple targets or single target. So one of these two, definitely always going to be what I take. Last tier, Spitting Cobra. Spitting Cobra's alright. It's okay. It's got a short cooldown, gives you a little bit of extra damage, and gives you a little bit of extra focus, so that's kind of nice, but it's honestly, I don't ever use it. I just don't ever use it. Aspect of the Beast, again, it's alright. Typically in PvP though, you're going to be using a Cunning Pet because you need the Roar of Sacrifice. So I don't really need the additional movement speed reduction because I already have, my Tar Trap and my Net, which will reduce, and Net reduces it for what? 15 seconds, and I can apply it, whenever I push the dang button. So I don't really need my pet to also be slowing them down. So I don't ever really use Aspect of the Beast in PvP. Might be better in PvE, maybe, because you're using a Ferocity pet for damage, and they can put up an extra bleed, but PvP, I don't like it. Expert Trapper, though, I definitely do like. I'm going to kind of just read through the description here, but you can obviously see when freezing traps incapacitate effect ends, the victim and all nearby enemies' movement speed is reduced by 50% for 4 seconds. Pretty good, right? Explosive Trap deals 75% more damage to whoever triggered it, which most of the time you're just dropping it on somebody. Your other traps are ones where people are going to be walking into it. Let's say you're guarding an area or guarding a flag. You want to lay those down defensively and then use your Explosive Trap offensively. Tar Trap. People moving through your Tar Trap have a chance to be rooted in place for 4 seconds. Now that is handy in PvP. Versus the cow traps, I mean, this just makes Tar Trap worth it over the cow traps pretty much any time, because that root is more important than, at least in my opinion, more important than that extra like small amount of bleed damage that you get from cow traps. So I like that. Steel trap, don't ever use it. Cow traps, if you did have cow traps, it would increase their damage by 50%. Cow traps don't really do that much damage in PvP. The description, as soon as you go into PvP mode, it drops down to, I want to say, it's like 21 or 22. So it basically cuts it in half, and then the movement speed is reduced by 49%. So, you know, it's just not as good. I'll kind of briefly touch on honor talents. So, Gladiator's Medallion is typically what I use in most situations. Don't really use adaptation. No, never on my hunter anyway. I use it on my pally occasionally, but not ever on my hunter. Relentless, yeah, in certain arenas it's good. You know, if you're going against like Mage Rogue, Mage Rogue Druid, or Mage Rogue anything for that matter. Actually, Mage Rogue Priest, just anything with a lot of CC. Yeah, it's definitely good for that. Again, these talents are ones that you swap pretty often. So what I'm telling you here is not like baseline information, like you're always going to be using this, because this will change. Hardiness, don't use that often, to be honest. Reinforced armor, definitely against non-melee heavy teams. This is definitely best. Obviously, you don't need sparring if you're going against a warlock and a mage. So I would always take reinforced armor over hardiness. But sparring is good, obviously, if you're going against melee-heavy arenas or BGs. Same with this tier here. This one, it's hard to say which one I would pick. If I'm going against warlocks, maybe take this one. Melee, obviously, I'm going to be taking that one if it's melee-heavy. Survival tactics is good, but, you know, when you get dots on you that when they're dispelled, something bad happens to you, like you get feared, or you get silenced, or you take more damage, or something like that. This will trigger that. So, because it basically cleanses it off you. So if you have a warlock's dot on you, I forget what it's called, unstable affliction or whatever, and you feign death with this on there, you'll get the silence, and so forth. So you got to be careful about that. Viper Sting is usually, you know, unless it's really melee heavy, I typically stick with Viper Sting, especially in BGs. If it's arenas and we're going against like an all DPS team or something like that, I typically don't need Viper Sting. Then I would go with one of these guys, either Scorpid Sting or Spider Sting, which Spider Sting is actually very good defensively to use against casters like boomkins and warlocks and mages. Does help against them, and then this obviously is good for going against melee heavy comps. But general rule of thumb for me anyway is to use Viper Sting unless the situation calls for me to pick one of these other ones. Hunting pack is handy. It definitely is, but you know, the only time I would take Hunting Pack over Master's Call is if we're going against a team where I know my healer can cleanse the slows off of me and I don't need to worry about it. Like, let's say I have a Holy Paladin who's running double blessings, and I know that I'll have freedom whenever I want it. Then of course I don't need Master's Call. I'd probably go into Hunting Pack. Mending Bandage is okay. A little bit of extra healing and can take off bleeds and poisons and diseases, but I'd probably take Hunting Pack over Mending Bandage. But generally speaking, Master's Call usually is going to win out unless it's one of those situations where I know I'm always going to be mobile. Last tier, this one's tricky because it varies. Again, if I'm going against a melee heavy arena team for 3s or 2s, I like Sticky Tar for that because it does reduce their attack speed by 50%. So if I'm standing in the trap, they also need to be standing in the trap, meaning this effect is just going and going and going until the trap is gone, basically. So it can reduce the pressure that they can apply to my team. Diamond Ice is also good. It basically turns my ice trap into a cyclone, more or less. It can't be dispelled, and damage won't matter. Bad thing with Diamond Ice is sometimes, I mean, no matter how hard you try, sometimes the wrong target goes into your trap, and then you can't damage them, and you're being forced to switch to somebody that you and your partner or your battleground team didn't necessarily want to switch to while you're waiting for the ice trap to go away. Tracker's Net is good. Again, it's more situational. It's good against melee. So like if there's a warrior that I just want to keep rooting away from my healer or away from myself, then I can use this. But it is tricky, and typically for arenas, I'm using one of these. Diamond Ice I almost always use in BGs, because BGs there's so much AoE that throwing out a frost trap isn't going to do any good, because it's just going to get broken by somebody else's AoE anyway. So that's why I use Diamond Ice, because it ensures that I'm locking down a healer or whatever it is that I'm trying to lock down. If I see a warlock casting in the distance, or if I need to trap somebody, let's say there's a warrior who's just chasing me around or whatever, but I happen to be in a group of people, I can drop this on him and then not have to worry about him, basically. So but that's about it. As far as pet abilities goes for PvP, it's pretty much always cunning. I mean, some people might beg to differ. I don't know why you would. The Roar of Sacrifice is just it's just too good. I mean, basically, I'll read the description here. So, protects a friendly target from critical strikes, making attacks against that target unable to be critical strikes. So basically it makes you uncrittable, but your pet takes 20% of the damage taken for 12 seconds. So I actually have it macroed into my mend pet. So when I start taking heavy damage, I just hit my mend pet button, and he'll cast his Roar of Sacrifice on me, and then it'll auto start healing him, since he's going to be taking some of that damage. You know, you can also set it to, let's say you're running with a healer and you want to, you know, set a macro to where your pet's going to start Roar sacrificing him. You can do that too. It's not a very hard macro to set up, but again, that's why you would always use Cunning, just for that. And then the dash and the boar speed is always nice. Bullheaded, another ability that's always nice if your pet gets CC'd for whatever reason. I don't know why you would CC a survival hunter pet, but you never know. And then cornered doesn't really come into play all that much. Most people don't target your pet and kill your pet, so usually he's not that low. But yeah, Roar of Sacrifice is why you want to use Cunning. I think we pretty much covered it. You know, Survival's a tricky class, or tricky spec, I should say. It does require a lot of practice. It took me a long time to figure it out, but in my opinion, it's the funnest and the most rewarding. I just like it. I have a lot of control. I can still do good damage. Yes, the damage is not as high as, let's say, Marksman, but it's more fun. I'm not just standing there like casting the whole time. Like, I'm in there, I'm moving around, I'm trapping people, I'm jumping out, I'm kiting people around. It's just more fun, and that's why I like Survival, and that's why other people like it as well. But anyway, that's it, guys. Post your comments and questions down below. If you think I missed something, you have a question, I'm more than happy to answer them. Just put them in the comments down below. And yeah, that's it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, guys, take care.